Is it possible that she wanted to have this conversation for a salacious headline?
Absolutely.
Based upon the album coming out.
Based
Today?
on how algorithms work.
Today, the album came out today.
She needed something that was going to make her relevant, a conflict,
Absolutely.
a conversation. Is that possible that maybe...
Yeah, of course.
1,000% possible.
Is,
1,000% possible.
and is that how we end up in this situation where all of our headlines
1,000%
and
possible.
what we're interested in are based on conflict?
But
Is it possible that in itself she thought was going to be what helped her music get a listen?
let's go further than that though. Is it possible that she was advised by her team or who's to go in that direction, and she's still taking direction or doing stuff she probably shouldn't do? Is her team, you know what?
Does she even have a team?
I don't know.
Well, according to what they've been saying, she does. And it's the fact that she didn't even want to talk. She wasn't going to talk. I don't say she wasn't. She didn't want to. She wasn't going to talk about the situation with Beyonce until they asked her on The Breakfast Club. I told B, I was like, man, I appreciate you, bro. Like, thanks for taking your time to drive over here and to be a part of this. But we're here again. So
Back like we never left.
Back like we, man, because, woo. But we good now. We good today. So it's Good Friday too.
It is Good Friday.
It is. I didn't even realize today was actually Good Friday though.
Yeah,
It was like, oh, it is Good Friday. We're going to Easter. We're going to Easter service tomorrow.
Oh,
Because Sunday
It'll be crazy.
gonna be crazy.
yeah.
So crazy. So we're like, I'm glad our church is having a thing on Saturday, so we can go Saturday versus where the masses are gonna go on Sunday.
Right.
Yeah. I'm like, that's gonna be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But man, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Indie Unplugged, of course.
What up, though?
What's good?
What's going on?
How you feeling?
I'm great, man.
Doing amazing.
Doing amazing?
Amazing.
I'm good.
You good?
I'm good. Look, I ain't got no complaints today.
Today. I like that.
Today, I'm good.
Yeah.
No, I'm good. Like, life is great. I'm here. Like my homie Greg always tells me, I woke up today. I'm on this side.
There you go.
I'm good. I'm like, all right, bet.
That's a blessing.
Yeah, it's a blessing, man. Yeah, man. How y'all week been?
Good, man.
Good.
Busy.
One day at a time, baby. You know what I'm saying?
One day at a time.
It's a blessing, though.
Been a crazy week. Yeah. Had the screening of the film The Ebony Canal this week.
That's right.
Over at the Ray Charles Performing Arts Center. And then, of course, the film itself, which I did music for that soundtrack. It's got 3 Webby Award nominations. And last night was the end of the voting. So the entire week has kind of been like this whole campaigning, get the awareness out there, get the people active to actually go and vote. So it's been a good week. It's been busy, but it's been a labor of love for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. I saw the clips from online. Yeah, it was jam-packed too.
It was a great turnout. Great turnout. That's a great theater. And it's a pretty nice venue, but it was a good turnout. A lot of media was there as well. I think Channel 2 even did a piece on them.
That's what's up.
On the director, Ime, and a couple other organizations were out there as well supporting locally because he's actually from Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay.
Not even from Georgia. So for him to be able to bring people out like that out of his hometown was real dope.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope. My man B, y'all, he over here rocking the Snoop Dogg today.
Yeah.
Look.
You know what's funny? You know, I got a rotation of shirts, so I put I didn't even think about it, but when I was putting it on, I said, you know what? I wonder, because I ain't been here in a few months. Remember he had all the backlash from performing. Is he still canceled? Because I'm like, am I supposed
I don't know.
am I supposed to put the shirt on or not?
Is Snoop
Or did they cancel Snoop?
Can you ever cancel Snoop though?
I don't know if you can cancel Snoop, but I will say that he got a heavy dose of the side eye, and then everybody just moved on. It was like it was way bigger fish to fry.
I just want to know if is he canceled or not still.
I don't think.
Because I got another shirt in the car. I can go.
I don't. That's
I don't
a good question. I don't know. I never officially heard anybody say like, "Oh, we not messing with Snoop
was on
no
his
more."
head. D.L. Hughley was on his head.
I know they was talking about him.
They were on their head.
His comment section. His comment section.
Oh, it was on fire. But what's crazy was that he didn't acknowledge it at all.
He acknowledged it. He had a clip where he talked about trying to tear black people down and why we do this to each other kind of thing.
I did see that, but it was indirectly.
Well, it was in the midst of all that mess that was going on. So I don't, I'm out the loop. I don't be paying attention. But I need to know because I got a lot of Snoop Dogg gear.
Yeah, I
don't know.
I don't think so.
I mean, you can't cancel Snoop. I don't think
so. I think people was like, "Come on, Unc," and then just left it alone. Now I know, like you said, people like D.L. Hughley, the media had a field day with it, but I just, a lot of people were like, "Oh, come on," but I don't know if people really.
I don't know. I'm just trying to see.
I don't know.
I'm trying to figure out what they want me to do.
It's almost summertime. We not gonna play gin and juice.
No, we playing gin and juice.
Okay, so I don't.
We playing.
I think your shirt is safe.
Your shirt is safe, B.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of being sarcastic.
I know. Yeah, we right there with you.
Couldn't care less.
Couldn't care.
But I was just curious.
Yeah, you're not canceling Snoop
because, when he performed at some kind of crypto ball or something like that, and the ball, I don't even think it was directly related to Donald Trump. However, it was obviously in benefit of Donald Trump being inaugurated.
Yeah.
Indirectly.
Mm-hmm.
And he got all the backlash or whatever for it. So I don't know what we supposed to be doing.
I mean, I guess an artist can get backlash for like anything. If it goes against what someone feels they should not do.
Right.
Or a mass of people feel that they shouldn't do it, then there's going to be some type of backlash that is enacted because it goes against what I think you should do.
Yeah.
So.
And everybody was then correlating it immediately back to how we did. They're like, all right, if we did that to Chrisette Michele when she performed at the first inauguration, then we better have that same kind of energy for Snoop and Nelly.
That's right.
Nelly was out there too. But
I think Nelly performed at the actual inauguration. Like
directly.
Yeah.
But here's my free game for everybody though, because the only thing that I'm a little sketchy about is I wouldn't have a problem with it if Snoop didn't make those comments clowning people who perform for Trump.
Yes,
100%.
When he called them jigaboos and
yes.
Here we go.
That's the only problem I have because so I guess my free game for this is you got to be careful what you say because it can come back to bite you.
That's right.
Or
hold up.
Stand on it. Stand on what you said. Like even though you might not see nothing wrong with performing at the crypto ball, you might think it's fine to do. You got to consider the fact that you said that before.
Right.
So just, you know what? I would do it, but I did kind of talk out of turn about that. So let me just fall back on that because I don't want to be a hypocrite.
Yeah. All right. You should just fell back knowing that you said these things and you made these types of remarks. And now you're going to do that yourself.
Yeah.
And them words come back. The words come back to haunt you.
Yeah.
So they will come back.
And me personally, I had more of a problem with his statement originally, clowning people who perform. That was my big problem then. So now it's like, okay, so obviously you probably regret what you said because you are performing
you are doing it
at a indirect but a event for President Trump. So
yeah,
I don't know, but I don't got a problem. I still support Snoop. I still
look. It's the dog father. But man, speaking of words coming back to bite you. And this ain't even part of what we're talking about here in just a moment. Well, it was in a clip that I watched when I was listening to the whole Keri Hilson thing that we'll talk about here in just a little bit and how that situation can apply to independence. But as I was listening to the clip, in the beginning of the clip, they were talking about a secret marriage that took place in August of 2024 between Toni Braxton and Birdman.
Okay.
That they got married secretly. Nobody knew.
Okay.
Right? That they got married and they got divorced 2 weeks later.
Okay.
Toni Braxton was like irretrievable, broken marriage. Like Ain't no way.
Can't you get it annulled when it's that soon?
Yeah, I guess.
I think so.
I guess. So they went through this
sure.
process, and then the marriage was dismissed, or the divorce was dismissed in January by Toni Braxton, and Birdman signed off saying the marriage was dismissed. So legally, they're still married today on paper. They are a married husband and wife couple, Toni Braxton and Birdman. But the point I wanted to make as I was watching this, and they were like, well, what would happen to cause you to file for divorce 2 weeks after you were married?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And see how petty Charlemagne is. Charlemagne was like, I don't know what to tell you, but you got to have a strong foundation. You're going to need God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit. You're going to need all three of them in your... Boy, I was like,
I see what you did there.
See that? But he just kept going, though. You're going to need all three of them in your relationship so, you can keep and build that foundation. I was like, yeah, I see how you brought that back. Years later, though, he ain't ever forget.
I mean, that's still a classic, epic clip.
Still a classic clip.
Yeah.
He ain't never forget that. So it came back to go, oh, you made these words? Oh, that we need to put some respect on your name? All three of y'all? He brought it right back. I was like, I was here dying laughing too.
That sounds like something he would do.
He would, because that's Charlemagne.
That's funny.
Yeah. That's Charlemagne.
All three of y'all.
All three of y'all. Man, but let's get into it.
I wonder why they did that though. There's usually like some kind of paperwork legality type thing. That's a weird. I haven't heard that, but yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, that was weird to me. It's like, but what was weird is that first of all, they got and my wife was making a statement saying, you never really know a person.
Mm-hmm.
Like you think about Birdman, what we know from the public eye, and Toni Braxton and what we know from the public eye.
Yes.
That would be like a combination you just wouldn't put together from a husband and wife perspective.
Yeah,
like
that's why I say that sounds transactional.
Yeah, nobody ever thought about like Bobby Brown and Whitney being together.
Right.
But
that worked.
It worked. And just in comparison, Toni Braxton, Unbreak My Heart, Toni Braxton, seven whole days.
Right. And then in actuality, like when we started to see like the Whitney Houston movies and stuff, it's like, oh, Whitney from Jersey, she was hood.
She was
super hood. That's so her polished pop persona didn't give us the impression that her and Bobby Brown would be a good match, but who she was in reality,
it was,
aside from the artistry.
That's what I was like, Birdman.
It was a good match because Bobby was hood, she was hood, and both were silly.
Right, so they were perfect. A match made in heaven.
Now maybe maybe Toni Braxton say three of y'all too. I don't know. We don't know.
Maybe she's talking about unbreak her heart or something. Birdman's the one who can unbreak it. I don't know. But anyway. All right, so let's I mean, there's a lot. When we do these episodes, man, there's always a lot that happens within the industry, man. One of the things that I'm always looking online, watching other podcasts. I know B does kind of the same thing and kind of seeing what's out there in the news from that perspective in the urban culture, the hip hop media, music space. And there was a guy, Rob Markman, made a comment. He was on Curtis King's podcast, and he was talking about how there is an unbalance in hip hop media, right? And how there's just a blatant unbalance in the media space where they're now more focused on entertainment, more from like a gossip perspective, drama, messiness. My favorite new word is salaciousness. So I'm always probably say that in one of these episodes somewhere. I forgot who said it, but I think T.I. said it. I don't think it was T.I. though.
I'm sure. I am certain.
But
that T.I. has said salacious. Right. I say salacious.
That sounds like a T.I. word.
Yeah, I say salacious, but my actual favorite word that kind of is in the same family is when I say people sensationalize things.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But so what do you think about that? Do you think, looking at the landscape of hip hop media and culture, that it is unbalanced?
Well, yeah. I mean, in terms of you having way more salacious and negative, headlines, absolutely. You know what I mean? But we know that the positive headlines or headlines that'll be beneficial to the culture, they don't get as much traction. You know, so even when you do have that, you're not going to get that pumped out by the algorithm as much. You know, you're going to get like the stuff to get all the views and all the people talking, all the comments, and that's the negative stuff, man. And I've said it before. In my opinion, 90+% of hip hop media are culture vultures, the majority of them, and by the standard of the fact that they do culture vulture type stuff, like misleading headlines. You know what I'm saying? Headlines that are just, you know, like Bobby Brown just did an interview with Shannon Sharp. I'm about halfway through it, and it's a pretty good interview. One little clip about Britney Spears saying that she butchered My Prerogative. You know, that's the headline going everywhere. Bobby Brown says Britney Spears butchered, you know, and it's like that's what's getting the traction when the majority of the interview is like positive stuff. You know what I mean? So that's just an example.
Yeah,
know?
no, that makes.
But those are the kind of headlines they run with hip hop media because they want to advance the culture.
Yeah.
And I mentioned Club Shay Shay because remember he got that award of being the best hip hop media
right.
at was it the BET Awards? Something
At
like
the
that?
BET Awards.
And
He's not even.
I'm saying that sarcastically, but he got the best hip hop media award at the.
And he's
BET
not even
Awards.
a hip hop media platform.
There you go. That's hip hop journalism today.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's unbalanced in my opinion.
I wonder what the criteria was for that. How would he have been even able to be in that category? That's interesting. Because it's not even music based. You know, it's different. For example, you know, Angela Yee has a podcast. No, they're not playing music on it, but we all know that she's worked in the music industry for.
Right.
So I could see that being in a hip hop category. Like, how does Shannon Sharp even end up in a hip hop category?
Because he has hip hop people on his platform. I guess that's a criteria.
I mean, he went on a run of just comedians apparently that all had beef with each other. Remember, he spent most of last year interviewing comedians. Only a few artists that I can think of were sprinkled in amongst. Cat Williams talking about he would have bust Cedric in the entertainer's stomach and all this.
I guess
craziness. But yeah, salacious headlines is kind of that's the way to go, and that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but that's how we consume as a culture is. We look for hot takes.
I would agree with that.
And then we want to blame it on these people who adapt into our culture, you know, to make some kind of profit or whether it's to make us look bad. I don't know. We want to blame it on them, but we're the ones that consume it. We click on it. So then what?
Yeah, B and I have talked about that many, many, many times of how consumers are the main drivers of
100%
of these things taking place. Like if you want to see, you know, you want to hear clean music, you're gonna have to go search for it. You're gonna have to allow that to be what the algorithm starts to feed you. But as soon as you start clicking on those other types of videos, the algorithm is gonna go, oh, that's what you want to hear. Yes. That's what you want to see. So I'm going to provide more of that, and it's going to drive that same type of.
It's cause and effect.
Yeah, cause and effect.
Absolutely.
So if you don't want salaciousness, gossip, messiness, from a media perspective, don't watch it. Don't.
That's right.
Don't entertain it. But that's the thing. We live in a very soundbite culture that we look for that hot take, right? We want that, you know, entertainment, that messiness. I think some people, there's
something in our DNA that loves conflict.
We want the conflict. We want to see this dude against that dude.
Yeah.
So
I guess that is our culture though, right? That's culture. That's human culture. And then even more so in the hip hop space.
Yeah,
because it's competitive.
I think you hit the nail on the head, though. It's human culture, right? But I think for some reason in our culture, in the African American and Black culture, we kind of highlight it more because you got ratchetness in everywhere. But for some reason, we take our ratchetness and put it in the forefront for whatever reason, you know. Because I don't mind. Like we all have our guilty pleasures. We all have stuff we watch or listen to that we consume. But I hate to be the whole old guy back in the day, but back in the day, you had like you had all that, you had, you know, Foxy Brown, Lil' Kim, you had ratchet stuff, you had, but that wasn't like the poster child for our culture. That was just kind of like, you know, I mean, we had like conscious rap and we had, you know, stuff to be proud of, you know, self-destruction and I don't know, Queen Latifah. You know, it wasn't like.
I feel like that stuff was sprinkled. You don't think so?
No, I
think that was more of what we got until, well,
that was sprinkled, guys.
You had
NWA, Ice Cube. They was talking about beating up everybody, beating up each other. The police. Public Enemy was talking about direct conflict with the police. It's always been a driver of what even if you go all the way back to Roxanne Shante, like it's just conflict was always what got people intrigued in things for our culture, especially as it related to music. What do we always talk about? Who's better, Chris Brown or Usher? Or it's like everything is a contest. And then you get sprinkles of things like You and I, T.Y. back in the day, or, you know, these songs where everybody comes together. But for the most part, you know, in the hip hop community, it's either we were either rapping about how we were better than everybody else or how we could beat everybody up. Like,
I mean, hip hop was based on, you know, in the very beginning, being braggadocious, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, it was always about competition, but even in competition, there's things that you can do to make competition fair, right? To ensure that competition is healthy without
never been the case.
Without having to beat somebody else down in order for that to elevate another person.
Who said I eliminate punks, cut them up in chunks? You assume to hurt me, now your ego shrunk.
Yeah, but that's a far cry from what we got today, though. That's a far
cry. I mean,
today it's just ratchet, degrading, disgusting. Dare I say? Turn on your hip hop and R&B station in any urban city and see what's played. You don't got sprinkles, nothing. You got all ratchet. Ain't no sprinkles or nothing.
Yeah, no sprinkles.
Yeah,
don't sprinkle me, man.
It's ratchet.
That's
and
true.
Negative. Let me take your girlfriend, sleep with your girlfriend. Let me shoot my ops. You know, and let me bleep out half the words too, so you understand what they're saying.
That's true.
What we got now.
That has now become the standard.
Yeah,
which is crazy. However, we was doing it back in the day.
It wasn't dominant.
I don't think it was dominant.
It was not commercialized.
But even mentioning NWA,
or not even. I don't know if you can call it commercialized.
Even mentioning NWA or Too Short. You know, they were the dirtiest, nasty.
Too Short was.
But listen though,
that's the first thing I thought of.
But
like
listen,
DJ Quick, Too Short. They was talking crazy. 2 Live Crew.
But you gotta understand. I'm gonna use NWA and Too Short as prime examples though. They had records specifically made for the radio that were clean. Not clean versions, like specific records that were made. Like they had one side that was dirty and one side that was clean. Yeah. And you talk about the world's most dangerous group. Niggas with attitudes. You know what I'm saying? Too Short, the same thing. Too Short had literal, clean, dare I say, positive records. You know what I'm saying? Short and funky.
They knew.
Life is Too Short. Ghetto. Whereas even our rappers had balance back then. You know?
And I think that's the key. It was balanced back then too.
And
even though they may have been going at each other, there was still a sense of balance amongst what was being pushed out from a music perspective back in the 80s and the 90s and maybe early 2000s.
But we
I think you're right. It's been brought to the forefront and made acceptable to be more salacious than it used to be, whether it's a headline or whether it's a lyric. I think that has become more the norm. I think that the senses have been dulled to the point where, you know, even on TV, I remember TV shows on major networks didn't have profanity in them.
Yeah.
Now you got, you know, your standard ass, damn, and shit. You can say that now on a TV show on a major network. That used to never be the case. Even on the radio, I had an FCC license, and you couldn't say shit ass.
Mhm.
You turn on the radio now, and it doesn't matter what genre the station is.
Yeah.
So it has changed.
It's
You're
balance,
right.
though. The word is balance, right?
But it existed.
It's balance.
And it was like,
but there was balance. There was balance. Now it's like the scales is like this now.
I kind of don't. I do and I don't agree.
So I heard a interview with Rakim, right? And they asked Rakim why didn't he
Stay with
curse?
Dr. Dre.
Yeah. Why didn't he curse in his music? And he stated that because he knew his moms and pops were going to listen to it, right? And so he understood that in order for them to truly listen to it and enjoy it, it was to honor his mom and pops. So he just didn't curse, but it just became the thing of Rakim. So if you go back and listen to Rakim's music, you will hardly hear him say. Now in an interview, he said he was cursing up. He was doing his regular thing, but in his music, he wasn't cursing.
Yeah, because LL Cool J, same thing.
Same thing. You rarely heard rappers back in the day really curse on their albums until you really start getting into the early 2000s. But yes, definitely NWA.
I'm gonna say not the early 2000s.
Definitely NWA and all that.
Yeah, if it was a Cube or NWA, DJ Quick, boy, I'd be like, I'd be nervous listening to that. Like, boy, if my mama here would come out these headphones.
A lot of the early rap, because they understood the balance. Like B was saying, there was that balance. They understood that they had to make songs. If they wanted to get songs on radio, they had to make clean radio versions of songs, right? And so they put those clean versions out, and some of those clean versions were just as popular as the curse versions. But I think that as we're stating, the word is balance, right? And there's things I listen. We all got guilty pleasures, right? So there's things that we listen to that probably fall into that space, and there's things we listen to that probably falls into the other space. But it's a balance, right? And right now there is no balance in the music, and there is no balance in the media itself, because the media is driven by gossip and drama.
What's
like culture vulture activities.
It's what moves the needle.
It does what moves the needle.
So can we say it's the media drives it? If I put a Prius and a Porsche next to each other, which one you getting in?
It depends.
Most people.
Do I got to put gas in this Porsche?
And most people gonna hop in what's sexy and what's fast. So now whose fault is it that they hopped in what was sexy and what was fast?
It's their fault.
You made your choice. I feel like we make our choice. And like especially when you talk about algorithm, we drive the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't drive us. Mm-hmm. When I'm like, just like I was saying, about looking for furniture. So now when I get ready to go back on IG and all I see is furniture popping up, I can't be like, oh man, the media. No, it's my
choices.
My choices drove that to me. Is it our choices as consumers that allow media to basically just feed into what we have already told them that we want?
Absolutely.
So what is it? You don't blame the stove for being hot. At some point, you got to blame the hand.
Yeah, because it's my choice to touch the stove, whether it's hot or not. But I mean, that's the thing, because these organizations, companies are going to continue to push this. So the question is, how do you respond to it from a consumption perspective? I mean, you're going to consume something. And so are you going to consume something that's positive or something that's negative?
Example, right now, they keep talking about, and I keep saying I want to see a KPI. They keep talking about Target and how Target sales have gone down.
KPI, right? Yeah, I want to see a KPI too.
Yeah, I want to see the KPI.
Like, I want to see the KPIs. I want to see
it
I want to
down.
See what those numbers look like.
Yeah, but if they are down, what does that mean? That means that we made a choice as consumers that we wasn't rocking with that. And so now they're going to have to pivot because an impact. So if we stop clicking on salacious Bobby Brown and Britney Spears headlines, then will that force media to pivot to what we will click on?
But here's the question. Does media also have a responsibility in that? the platforms, and of course I'm gonna say these platforms anyway, right? Whether it's I always say Vlad, right? Just because he's one of the largest platforms, right?
No, definitely.
But I will say Vlad, Joe Budden podcast, academics, No Jumper, right? All of these huge platforms that are pushing out those stories to the masses, and the masses are consuming them, yes, and using headlines to clickbait people into watching them, yes. We decide what we want to watch, right? But does the media also have a part in what is being pushed out to the masses? So here's why, and I'll let y'all answer, but here's why I say it. Because in this same clip that I was watching with Rob Markman and Curtis King, right? They were talking about, and this whole thing started really from an interview with Curtis and Mick Jenkins. And they were talking about it, and Mick was talking about how it was unbalanced because every time he goes to these different platforms, nobody wants to talk about the music. They want to talk about, oh, you did this to this dude, and that dude trying to slide for you, and he's trying to do that, blah, 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 right? But they don't want to talk about the music, so they want to talk about all these other things. He's like, so there's no balance in this whole perspective. Because the thing that still catches me is in that same podcast, they were like, yeah, today we'll talk about the Kendrick and Drake beef. Right, here we go. I'm mentioning the same thing, right? What I'm about to say. You're talking about the Kendrick and Drake beef and who's doing this and blah, blah, blah. They were like, yo, we're gonna ever start talking about this? But then the next video that came out was a video about the Kendrick and Drake beef. So it's like media platforms, in instance, they were talking about, yes, we have a responsibility, but they'll turn right around and push the same type of content back out that they were just saying that they should not be feeding to the masses.
I don't think it's really a question of should or should not for me. I just think it's calling a spade a spade. If you're, what a vulture is, right? A vulture, they come down, they sweep up and they take advantage, so if you're,
and they eat anything.
If you're going to post headlines just to get clicks, you're a vulture, or you're doing things a vulture would do, whether it's good or bad and different, whether you agree with it, don't agree with it. If you know that people are going to eat this kind of content and you're making, cause I'm going through Club Shay Shay's headlines on their different clips, half of them just kind of like messy. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like if you're posting a headline just because you wanted people to click it because it's messy. I mean, you can, of course, you can blame people for clicking it, but a spade is a spade. You're being a vulture, So it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean,
right or wrong, good or bad, like that's what you're doing. You're making the headline that's messy because people, who cares about the consequences of what it's doing to the fiber of our culture? Who cares about that? Who cares about you're doing what you got to do to get clicks to be one of the biggest platforms, the biggest hip hop platform at that, according to BET, right? So
that's crazy.
I mean, you're doing what you got to do. So hey, it is what it is. I can tell you, but it's only about one or two platforms that I haven't really saw a culture vulture kind of head, like big platforms. I mentioned Elliott Wilson once with Rap Radar, and that they're not even super popular. They ain't did a podcast in I don't know how long, but I can't really think of too many besides them that don't post those salacious headlines to get the clicks. I don't know. So to me, the majority of hip hop media participates in culture vulture activities, in my opinion. Right or wrong, is what it is.
Yeah. Ty's over here thinking.
I just think that if you open a restaurant and you sell sugar-free food, and I open a restaurant and I got sugar in all my food, and people come to my restaurant and don't come to yours, they just made a choice. So when people click on the salacious headlines, that's just the choice they made. The clean headlines was out there, and they just didn't choose to click on those. The healthy food was out there.
Yeah. So
they didn't choose it.
And it's not wrong.
So
with that.
at what point do you blame the hand?
We're not blaming. We calling a spade a spade. We're not blaming nobody. And the fact is, you're selling food that's going to send people to an early grave, and that's fine. It's just calling a spade a spade.
Probably so.
It's just calling a spade, though. It's not saying that nobody's right or wrong. It's just calling a spade a spade. You're participating. in a cycle that's going to send somebody to the grave probably earlier than they should go, and that's just what it is.
So look. To your point, what they should do, right? And Shannon Sharp, they ain't gonna do this, but what they should do to test that choice of whether you put something clean or you put something messy out there, is to run the same clip but with 2 different headlines, and see which clip is going to actually same clip of Shannon talking to Damon Wayans about the same thing, and then see actually which one is going to get clicked on, whether it's the headline that is just straightforward.
But you know what?
Or if it's just a messy headline that they post with that.
I'll give them a little bit of bail right here. I'll give them a little bit of leeway right here, because what's going to happen is if they put the clean headline, some third party going to take that clip, repurpose it, and put the messy headline. Right. And they got to try to get it taken down and all this stuff. So they going to do it themselves. Somebody going to take that clip, repurpose it, and put the messy head. So, but it is what it is.
I mean,
though,
it just I was just looking at it from an AB.
I'm just calling a spade, man. I'm just calling a spade a spade. Like, do I like it? Not really. You know what I'm saying? Because here's the thing. Half the time, the clips don't even be as bad as the headlines say they are.
They don't. That's a fact.
And it's like, why you got to like...
That's a fact.
And then the majority of people we know, I don't want to call them stupid, but the majority of people don't really take the time to really dissect it and say, that's not what it's saying. They're going to run with the headline and say, oh, did you hear so-and-so said this? And it's like, they're playing on the fact that people aren't that, don't do their due diligence. So then rumors get spread
say that,
and viewpoints get, and it's just all messy, because you can shape someone's mind with these headlines without them researching for themselves. You can shape someone's opinion out that'll dictate how they live their life. So now you're really being a vulture. You're really, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, oh, it's kind of like nasty. And if that's what you can do, if you rolling with that to enrich your pockets, to make you more famous, more wealthy, send your kids to college, God bless you. You know what I'm saying? But I just think it's kind of, I don't really rock with it.
I got kids to feed.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it boils down to is exactly what you said about like the one pod or the show, they don't use those headlines, but you don't know when was the last time they posted an episode. That speaks for itself. Like the people who are running No Jumper, is stay popping. Why? Because they run the stuff that people want to click on.
Oh, bro,
people they don't want to click. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that
it is what it is.
We choose what we consume. We should make better choices. But the reality is, if you want to be relevant, if you want to stay in business, then you have to create a product that is viable for the market. And the market is saying that content that is made in a salacious fashion is what they want, unfortunately. And you know what always trips me out? What's worse than music? Sports. If you go on Bleacher Report,
with your boy Stephen A. Smith,
or it's getting crazy now. It's getting crazy.
Those headlines, the headlines don't even. The headlines will have you thinking that LeBron James got traded to the Atlanta Hawks. It'll say LeBron comes to Atlanta and ... because they want you to click on it.
You gotta click
then when you click on it, he comes to Atlanta to buy a new car. Like, what the heck? You got me breaking my neck to see what this headline was going to be. Salacious headlines get clicks.
I will say this, though. I'm going to push back a little bit on you, because you're right in terms of the highest tier of success. But don't get it twisted. Like, and speaking of Elliot Wilson, Rap Radar podcast ain't been in a while, but Elliot Wilson does content all the time.
All the time.
He's got the Elliot Wilson experience. And those things may not be as popular, but let me tell y'all something at home. You can do well for yourself without being salacious.
100%.
You might not be at the top of the top, or it might take you longer to build there, but we need more people who have good intentions, who don't want to be a vulture, to put out content and fight the fight and gather your audience. They may not be as big, right? But you be faithful to those people, because you're giving them much more content to listen to, so they can be less likely to get the salacious stuff. So do your part. Do your part. Stay consistent. Stay diligent. Don't give up. Put the positive content out there. You know what I'm saying? Because
I love that.
Because you might not be the top of the top.
Yeah.
I always say with my content, what I do here, what I did with the Free Game podcast, I understand that there's going to be a ceiling, but let's maximize the ceiling.
We're going to maximize the heck out of that ceiling.
And then raise it up a little bit.
That's right.
But it's possible, y'all. It's possible. 100%. You don't got to be a vulture. You might not get there as fast, but you don't got to be a vulture. You can be positive. And you can talk about some of the same stories and stuff without being salacious.
That's right.
You can address it from a positive standpoint.
Yeah.
And put some positive energy out there that'll benefit somebody's life. You can make the sugar-free stuff taste good if you want to. You might not sell as much, you know.
Yeah. But there's going to be a group of people that will patron that sugar-free business, right? It may not be, while this other business, the sugar business, got $1 million, you may get
sugar going crazy,
hundreds of thousands, right? And you're still making money that you can live off of and be comfortable and have a clear conscience that you're not sending people to early grave, right?
I was being funny with that, but
no, I'm just saying.
The crazy thing is, though, it's okay to go to that restaurant.
Yeah, you can go there. It's your choice.
Well, no, you said it, balance.
Yeah, exactly.
Balance.
But if that's all we're serving, if that's all we eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week, 24/7, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
So, but most people won't do that to our bodies, right? Why are we doing that to our souls and spirits? And why, you know what I'm saying? Why are we
Most
doing
people are doing that to their bodies. They say over 60% of the population in the United States is obese.
Mm-hmm.
So we are destroying ourselves, both what we take internally and what we consume from a media perspective. It's an unfortunate truth. I'm the reality guy. Okay, I agree with everything you're saying. Actually, as a matter of fact, we did a pod where we had Ashley King on here, and one of the I tell you what I think is the greatest disgrace to our culture is, I remember as a kid being able to listen to music in the car with my parents, and we were listening to whether it was Anita Baker or Whitney Houston or Sade or whoever it was, Luther Vandross. The music wasn't talking about swimming in your ocean. And I mean, we've gone so far into the realm of sexuality in R&B music, and now we're using profanity in R&B music like we did only in rap music previously.
Right.
That it's like, what the heck? I can't even. I had to get in the car and listen to pop music with my daughter because I don't want every other song to have either curse words in it or curse words bleeped out. So I think that's been a huge disservice to our culture in terms of R&B music. So I actually consciously make music, write songs to reposition what R&B used to be, how I remember it, how you can have a message that can relate to everyone but be pure enough for everyone to consume. Yeah. It don't have to be about digging in breaking your back and diving in your ocean,
breaking your back,
and drowning in your back. Like, it's R&B is wild now.
It was so crazy. I remember listening to a Tank song.
Oh man, he got some crazy.
I would listen to a Tank song, and as we were listening to the song, my wife was like, "Did he say something about doing her friend and breaking her friend back? Like, wait, what is he talking about?" I was like, "Babe, Tank be talking about all," but you got to be right, and that's the thing, because when I remember Tank first started out, not to go on a tangent, and the whole thing with this whole thing. I am an R&B guy. Yeah. Like, that is my number one genre. He didn't start out that way.
No.
Tank was not singing that.
He started out sugar-free.
Now, this boy is in the deepest part of the sugar tank. He's Kool-Aid. That red Kool-Aid got nothing but sugar in it.
And
now,
Tank said he came out, "I deserve," and then Jodeci came with every freaking night and every freaking day.
He was like, "What's this?"
And he was like, "Oh, I got
this is over.
I'm
when we...
exactly.
When we
exactly
you're gonna get all of that now. You're gonna get all the taking off the shirt and all that. You're gonna get sex.
Like, how are we supposed to raise kids? How we raising kids? How can you raise kids without exposing them to what's grown off the rip? R&B used to be the safe place where there was just talk about love and doing right by somebody. But sure, it was a little. You had your artists, you had your Betty Wrights and your, you had some of them, but
rest in peace.
It was way less of that energy back then.
Well, I watched this documentary about on YouTube about Jodeci,
I know we on a super tangent right
I know,
now. We way off
but
the
you
map.
know,
My
you started
bad.
talking about R&B.
Yeah.
That's my thing, and it was talking about Jodeci and how that, because you know they started off in the choir, right? Actually,
straight from the church.
Straight from the church. Actually, when they first started off,
So it's Tank.
You know, JoJo, pulled out a gun on was it Devontae?
It was Dalvin.
I think it was Dalvin.
Yeah.
It was one of them, and they weren't cool in the beginning. But anyway, straight from the church. Most R&B singers come straight from the church, right?
Right, used to.
And then they go into like the complete opposite direction with
Yes.
their lyrics, right? I don't know about their personal lives. I'm just saying from a lyric perspective and the song that they put out, and I still enjoy it, right? B asked me one day about R. Kelly. He was like, "You still listen to R. Kelly?" I was like, "Bro, I love R. Kelly music. R. Kelly to me is his songs is still so dope. Like he wrote songs for other people that you probably don't know that he wrote, and you are here loving these songs, and you like, oh, that's an R. Kelly song. He wrote that, and it's like, now do you cancel that song? But anyway,
Yeah. Y'all been? Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask. Speaking of, have y'all seen the recent post on social media about the Mount Rushmore? They're doing Mount Rushmore
Yes.
on everything.
Everything. It's a Mount Rushmore. Everything.
Yeah, they got Mount Rushmore for Disney characters, but anyway, Disney actors. But
Wow.
they had one about R&B
Yeah.
that was floating around. They had a couple actually.
Yes.
And they had
Who was on?
Michael Jackson,
Yeah.
R. Kelly,
Yeah.
Chris
Brown,
Brown,
yeah.
Usher, right?
and Usher.
Usher, yeah.
Yeah.
And they were talking about,
Yeah.
they were arguing about whether that was correct, They
Yeah.
leaving off Stevie Wonder and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, you got to take Michael Jackson head off, put Stevie Wonder head on there.
If we're talking about R&B.
Ooh, we gonna take off Mike and put Stevie?
Yeah,
Wait,
because
hold on.
because
So you gonna leave Chris Brown, R. Kelly, and Usher over Michael Jackson?
yeah, let me tell you why.
Okay, let's hear this.
Let me tell you. See, what had happened was
you gotta do that.
Michael Jackson became something so much bigger than R&B, and I'm not even saying that was his intent, but that's just a fact. So he became this worldwide phenomenon that wasn't necessarily only embraced by us, but embraced by the world. And then when you even think about, like, his first album was like a pop disco album.
Mhm.
Off the Wall had songs that were straight disco records.
Yep.
So, and there were some R&B artists that were doing disco kind of record, like, because Luther had some records that could play in a disco club. But even if you think about Thriller, who's dancing to Thriller? Like, that's a pop record. Billie Jean,
Who's
pop
dancing
record.
to Thriller? A ton of people dancing to Thriller.
Yeah, because he was smart enough to do a video.
Yeah.
And we all learned from Mike. I mean, Mike was iconic in so many ways, but we all learned if you want people to love the song, then you got to give them some dance moves to go with it. Everybody was trying to do the Thriller dance. But he's a pop artist. And if the definition of pop is music that is popular beyond the genre that it's initially placed in, he's
Then he wouldn't be an
probably
R&B.
the only person in that list other than maybe Chris Brown, who has to some extent substantially risen above one genre. R&B, R. Kelly, other than the fact that I Believe I Could Fly crossed over,
Mm-hmm.
and the other song, I'm not up in the sky, the greatest, the one he did for the Muhammad. Those kind of went a pop direction. Usher might have had like Oh My, the joint with Black Eyed Peas, like one or two records. But Mike, I mean, he just on a different. That's a different Mount
plane.
Rushmore.
So you're
to
saying
me.
if you surpass R&B, you can't be included on R&B Mount Rushmore if you surpass it?
If the culmination of who you are and what your music is goes beyond a genre, I think you should be credited for that.
But you can't be a part of that genre, the Mount Rushmore in that genre?
Nah, I think that's a different hill with rocks on it.
I ain't rocking with that. I'm not rolling with that.
He said different.
Yeah, that's a different hill with
rocks
rocks.
on
Like
it.
let's just stay with the people who, like you said, they chose a path and they stuck with that path.
Take Michael's R&B and put it against their R&B. He's on the Mount Rushmore. You take Michael's R&B records, just take his R&B records and put them against everybody's R&B records. He's on Mount Rushmore.
That's true. That is
don't
true.
Stop till you get enough. Rock with you.
Rock with You's a pop record. Listen to it. It's pop.
Yeah, I would have.
Here's
what I would
So
say.
Rock with You.
It's pop.
So
It's a pop record. It's okay. It's a great song.
So you're
It's
saying
one of the
that
best songs ever, but it's not R&B.
Rock with You's not R&B.
No, it's a pop song.
Hey, you know what? See,
It's a pop song.
sometimes you gotta just exit the conversation because if we're saying "Rock with You" is not an R&B record, then it's no point even arguing.
That is a pop record. What do you say?
Oh man,
Is that not a pop record?
Rock with You is a pop record.
So if it crosses over to become pop, it's no
No,
longer
that-
R&B.
no. That was a pop record
think,
when they
I think
did
Rock with
from
You
the jump. Okay.
was from the jump was a pop record.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, it's no point. I can't even
Yes.
argue with y'all. Then.
Yeah,
if y'all say that, I can't
Yes.
argue with y'all.
I think it was a pop record from the
The
beginning.
jiggity jump
With
Yes.
and I think a lot of Michael's songs,
were pop records.
pop records, were from the beginning.
Now nobody can
Or-
tell me that "Lady of My Life" wasn't an R&B record from the jump.
Well,
That's an R&B record.
who wrote "Late in My Life"? I think Michael B. Sutton wrote that.
And
I think
and
one of the
then
guests I had wrote that.
That the bass line, that boom, 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 that's an R&B record. Even how he was talking on there, that's an R&B record.
Mhm.
But Off the Wall and Rock with You and
I'm sipping my water, bro. I'm not even arguing.
He's like,
I'm just saying, man. If you listen to the
Oh, no,
musical
That was
elements,
Rod
Templeton.
Yeah, that was
Well,
Rod.
Rod Temperton,
Rod Temperton.
it was primarily a pop guy anyway.
Mhm.
Rock with You. Oh my God.
Rod Temperton probably felt like Mike was singing some of them songs wrong because he was making them sound like R&B, and he wanted them, and Rod wanted them to be pop.
Rock with You is not an R&B. That's just
He said that is 100%.
Listen
crazy.
to the musical elements.
Yeah,
it's a pop record, bro.
That's a pop.
It's pop.
I think it was. I think we categorize it in R&B because of who Mike is, but I think from the way that the song was created, I think it was created as a pop song from the very beginning.
Mike's first two projects were
Like-
pop heavy. So
Well,
much
disco
so
in
to
the
the
beginning.
point, disco and
It was
pop.
disco. It was disco in the beginning.
So
and
much
then
so to the
transference.
point. That's why Mike did the album with Rodney Jerkins and Teddy Riley, because he wanted to have an album that was
strict
truly
R&B.
R&B.
Well, he wasn't the only artist that did that. There were a ton of other artists who were in other.
Whitney Houston did
So
it.
Whitney Houston did the same
Whitney
thing.
Houston did the
just
same thing.
Just for fun,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So you're
yeah.
saying that all R&B, all Teddy Riley gave him was R&B records?
I don't even remember all the records.
What is Jam? What was Jam? What was that?
What you talking about? Jam with Guy?
No, Jam.
No, he's talking about Jam.
Michael
Ain't too hard
Jam.
for-
Yeah, yeah,
it ain't
Michael
too hard for me to
Jackson
jam. Ooh. I don't know what that was. It's a pop record.
Of course, it's a pop record.
It's
Of
a
course
pop
it
record.
is.
It's a pop record.
Of course it is.
I mean, but
Teddy Riley.
In all fairness,
I mean, but
there's
Teddy
no-
Riley isn't just a R&B producer though.
But I think it's just a pop record. I don't think
Yeah,
he
I mean,
had an
it's-
intent. Think about it. It's got DJ scratches in it, and then a guitar hits. Bam, bam. It's like, what is that?
That's a pop
It's a
record.
pop record.
1,000%.
It's a pop record.
He got a dude on there talking about, it ain't too hard for me to jam, but it ain't too hard for
Yeah.
me to jam. You think he was trying to do
even-
a pop record?
I mean,
I think
even-
it just ended up being a
even
a
Mike's
pop
moniker was
record.
the king of pop.
yeah.
I mean,
'Cause he is.
I mean, Michael's. And I know we get off on a tangent.
We
but-
are. We
but-
way off. But this is
look,
important.
But look,
This is like
I'm a
terrorists
R&B
right now.
I'm a R&B.
It's so
is
disrespectful to
important.
Michael's legacy to take him off the R&B Mount Rushmore.
I
don't think it is. I think
for
he's
artists,
bigger than
I think
that.
for artists like Mike,
That's like
it has to be a different
that's like for
I
example.
think that's a different. I
Mount
think
Rushmore.
so.
No, he is. You're right. He's on a different, but he's still on that Mount Rushmore as well. He's on the highest one, and he's still because he's come on now.
It'd be like if I start trying to tell you about how you start telling me about Michael Jordan, and then I start telling you about Sam Cassell. I know that's I'm way off.
Wow.
Right? Like Sam Cassell got championships. You would be like, so you really comparing Sam Cassell to Michael Jordan? Like, well, no, they both play basketball. They both got championships.
It's a bad example.
Like Michael Jackson.
It's a bad example.
We really
Usher-
comparing Michael Jackson.
Usher,
We want Michael Jackson and R. Kelly
Usher-
on the same
Usher.
Mount Rushmore.
Yes, don't disrespect R.
He's
Don't,
like,
don't
yeah.
disrespect
He's like,
Kills
don't
like that.
disrespect
Don't
Kelly, though.
disrespect Kills like
You
that.
really can't
We're
disrespect
talking
R.
about
Kelly, though.
goats. R.
'Cause he-
Kelly, Chris Brown, Usher, Mike. These are the goats we're talking about.
R.
Now,
Kelly. If anybody need to come up off of there, if we just gonna let them be what they are, then R. Kelly got to come off.
Oh nah.
See what I'm saying?
So that's why Mike need to come off so R can
forgive me.
stay.
Not from an R&B
Forgive me.
perspective.
I
No,
said
hold on. Let me tell
I
you
was
why.
gonna exit a while
Let
ago,
me
and I
tell you
stayed.
why.
I'm sorry. I said
Let me-
I said I was leaving
let
5
me-
minutes ago. I was gonna leave.
Let me tell you why.
And I stayed in.
Hold on. Let me
I'm
tell
done,
you why.
bro. I'm done.
Yo, who can go to any continent, have a show, turn it out, everybody know all the words, going crazy, dance moves going crazy, choreography going crazy? Michael Jackson? Yes.
Chris Brown.
Chris Brown?
Yes.
Yes. Usher? Yes. Yes. Don't play with Usher.
We're talking about
Yes.
bro.
Can
come on.
R. Kelly
The
do
R-
that?
We're talking
R.
about the
Kelly's
R&B
not-
Mount Rushmore.
So if we're
talking
saying
about
Michael Jackson should be on a different one, R. Kelly is not to the music.
We're talking
Yes,
about-
for
Yeah, so-
R&B,
That's
but if
what
we're
we're talking
talking
about,
about
R&B
the
music.
status of the artist,
But I don't think we're talking about. Anyway, we're gonna go on a tangent. I don't
we
think that's
can't
what.
put him on.
I don't think that.
That's
what
why
we're
Mike
talking
got to
about.
go. Mike got to come off so R
Nah,
can
I don't know
stay.
about that.
Mike crawl so R can walk. But if you can't even technically compare the four of them from a showmanship standpoint, and that's kind of why Mike need to come off and go on a different one.
So look, so y'all tell us based upon that
Yeah,
R&B
tell us in the comments.
R&B Mount Rushmore, who should go on there? Should R. Kelly come off? I don't know. Should Mike come off because he transcends R&B? That's a thought, right? Should Usher and Chris Brown, should they be there, or should there be other people that are there? Should there be other groups?
They
Maybe there are
almost
groups
junior
who need to go there.
They junior
I don't
transcenders
know.
right now. They junior
I don't
Chris
know.
and Usher are junior transcenders.
I don't know.
I mean,
But look-
technically, R didn't get the
but look-
chance, but R wasn't never about to do no backflips on stage. Like, stop playing. R wasn't about to do no choreography.
But I don't think that's components of
It don't make it
making
R&B.
sure.
Yeah, I mean,
of
we just talking
R&B.
about the
Because you can
music.
dance.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm talking about the full culmination of the artists themselves. That's why I say Michael Jackson should
Yeah,
be
but I
on there
don't-
with them. But
But I don't think that's a component for a category, a criteria is that they got to dance and do backflips. But anyway,
it is.
It's
'cause
not from
it
an R&B.
is.
Luther
Luther ain't on there.
Luther is one.
Luther ain't on there, though.
Is the greatest singer
He
probably
wasn't on
ever.
there.
But he's not, because a lot of people ain't gonna put Luther on there.
Maybe they should.
They don't put Luther on there, and
Maybe they
nor
should.
are they going to say Luther is probably one of the best singers.
Maybe they should.
R&B singers
and
ever.
maybe Michael Jackson is in his spot
I don't know.
because Michael Jackson shouldn't be on there.
But speaking of R&B,
But Luther got disco records too.
he does, because that's how his whole thing started. But speaking of R&B,
He sure
right?
did. Like more so even than Mike, probably.
Yes. Probably.
Yeah.
But speaking of R&B, right?
So everybody agrees with
Yeah.
me. I
No,
won.
no, we
just book that.
Nope.
Book,
Yeah, you-
book
you-
that.
you
Everybody
won.
agrees
Nope.
with me.
You won. You got it, bro.
Nope.
You won.
It makes sense,
He didn't.
man. It's okay.
Nope.
Sometimes
I'm definitely taking R. Kelly off.
You
But
got
anyway,
it,
we're talking about R&B, right? So let's talk about this whole Keri Hilson, Beyonce
oh, it's a good segue.
thing, right? That
Good job.
came out recently. He said, "Good job." They came, and now she's on a whole circuit of all the different. I just saw her on Cam Newton today. I was reading the thing, and it came out like 3 hours ago that she was on, the Cam Newton. But of course, it started when Keri Hilson was on the Breakfast Club. She addressed the rumor about the Beyonce diss in her 2019 "Turning Me On" remix. She revealed in that interview that she did not write the verse and that she was pressured by Polo the Don to do it, despite her objecting to the lyrics that were written. Now we know now that it was Esther Dean that wrote the lyrics.
Right.
And so she said that, it was leaked. They promised her that it wasn't going to be leaked. It was leaked. She received major backlash from it. And we know what happened from that, from a Keri Hilson perspective. But so now that all this is all coming out, what do y'all think about this in relationship to music? And more importantly, I'm always thinking about the independent space. How does an independent person have to consider things like this? Whether songs may be leaked, whether they're writing songs that are derogatory to another group of people or a particular person. How does an independent kind of deal with? First, we'll talk about that, and then how do they navigate something like that themselves?
You got to stand on it, man. You got to stand. Listen, if you're independent, if you're at home, if you making music, you're doing a podcast, whatever you do, stand on what you do. Stop making excuses. Don't blame nobody else. Even if you are a true victim, don't be a victim. Say that again. Even if you are a legitimate, real life victim, don't be no victim, man. Just kind of like stand on it. And in this case, you know, you decided to sing those words. You decided to get behind the microphone and sing it. Stop the whole woe is me, or they blackballed me, or they did this to me. Maybe they did. But hey, it's a new day. You're alive. You know, you got your skill intact. You still look beautiful. You got stuff going for you. In a Breakfast Club, right? Promote what you got going on. Stop being a victim. I don't like the whole thing about being a victim. And to me, it seems like she's a victim crying about how they did her wrong. When, you know, you sang the song. And as far as leaks go, y'all, again, more free game. Assume anything you record can be leaked.
100%.
Assume that. Don't talk about, they promised me it wouldn't leak.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they promise you it's not going to be leaked, they're probably going to leak
Like,
it.
just assume. And my thing is, if you're a man or woman enough to go behind the booth and sing the words. Now, if you want to apologize. Say, no, I'm sorry. That was wrong of me for saying that about Beyonce. I apologize. Just apologize and move on. Don't make excuses, though. Or they did this, or they made me sing it, or I didn't write it. To me, that's just kind of weak. In my opinion, just move on. Carrie Hilson is beautiful. She still got talent. She's still relatively young. You know, just do your thing. Stop blaming and being a victim. As far as Esther Dean go, we said this before. Why are you chiming in? You know what I'm saying? Like, just,
we know why she's chiming in.
Just like, you stand on it too. You know what I'm saying? Stand on it and just move on. Like, yeah, you got dealings with Rock Nation now. You're trying to clean, like, it's all just lame in my opinion.
I have a question. With the current state of R&B and music being released at the magnitude that it's released, Keri Hilson not being signed to a major label, she's done a partnership with a distribution company in order to release this project. Is it possible that she wanted to have this conversation for a salacious headline?
Absolutely.
Based upon the album coming out.
Based on how algorithms work.
Today, the album came out today.
She needed something that was going to make her relevant, a conflict,
Absolutely.
a conversation. Is that possible that maybe...
Yeah, of course.
1,000% possible.
And is that how we end up in this situation where all of our headlines
1,000%
and what
possible.
we're interested in are based on conflict?
But
is it possible that in itself she thought was going to be what helped her music get a listen?
Let's go further than that, though. Is it possible that she was advised by her team or who's to go in that direction, and she's still taking direction or doing stuff she probably shouldn't do? Is her team, you know what?
Does she even have a team?
I don't know.
Well, according to what they've been saying, she does. And it's the fact that she didn't even want to talk. She wasn't going to talk. I don't say she wasn't. She didn't want to. She wasn't going to talk about the situation with Beyonce until they asked her on the Breakfast Club. And then at that moment,
but you don't have to. You don't have to answer every question.
Right? She could have been like, I don't really want to talk about that. I already moved on past that.
So that's what makes me ask that question. Not only that, I know based on, I mean, you know, but I think we've all watched the Breakfast Club a long time. And we know that the people who go on the Breakfast Club have the ability to provide them with a list of things that they don't want to talk about. Well, which usually Charlamagne asks them anyway, even though it's on the list.
Charlamagne did say that the team was concerned about when she started talking about it, if that was something that they were going to cut from the interview. And after conversation, they decided to keep it in there because it now gave her the ability to clear the air on this whole. Now, sometimes there are things that you need to do to clear the air, right? If there's misunderstandings or situations. I don't know about 16 years later. Or if
that's what I'm saying.
How about just apologize? Say, you know what, that was lame. I shouldn't have did that. I'm sorry, Beyonce.
Well,
keep it moving.
Well,
I think
keep it moving.
That's like you said, that ship already sailed. I think this was not about that. I think this was just about trying to find a way to be relevant for the sake of having new music. Because if you just go on there and you're Keri and you say, yeah, I got new music coming out, it's going to be great, listen to me, guys, will we be talking about her right now?
Again, when you choose not to be a culture vulture, your ceiling may be a little bit smaller. You know, she's talented. I'm sure there will be some fans that still check for her and still buy her music. It may not be as big as it could have been, but she can start somewhere. And if you're at home, if you're an independent artist, personally, in my opinion, don't be salacious, don't be lame.
Don't be corny.
Exactly. Stand on your talent and and let it speak for itself. You might start smaller, but you can work there. You can grow.
That's right. I mean, but here's the question though: did she really have a choice? I'm gonna go back to that moment of them saying that she said, of course, she was pressured to write the song. I mean, she didn't write it. Two, she was pressured by her executive to do this, or her project was going to be shelved because she didn't have an album at the time.
Excuses. Just stand on and say, you know what? I'm sorry. I regret doing that. I'm sorry. And keep it moving. Stop pointing fingers and blaming. If you do something, it's regardless of you being pressured to do it, it's still you doing it. Accountability is important.
I mean, you are still doing it.
We live in the victim Olympics in 2025. Everybody want to be a victim and point the fingers at somebody else. Just say, you know what? I wish I hadn't did that. I'm sorry. Because
I kind of feel like she said that.
Now
she did say that,
and
but
she added all these excuses to it, though. Just say that and shut it down. Next question.
Was it?
Next question,
Was it an excuse or was it the truth?
Well, according to what it is now, it's the truth.
If I say it's still an excuse.
If I say it should have never happened, I should have never done it. I was young. I was afraid. I wanted my deal. I wanted my music to come out. I shouldn't have done it, but I did. She said that. She did say that. She said that. Is it not okay to then say, I didn't write it. Someone else wrote it. I was pressured to do it. Is that not just her stating the truth?
I think
or that's
lame.
Her making an excuse?
I think it's lame. I think it's making an excuse.
But if it's the truth?
I think it's both.
An excuse? Listen.
I just think it's both from that perspective. I think it's, and I'll pass it back to you, B. I think it's the truth from what has been coming out. Esther Dean confirmed it. It's the truth.
And that was weird too.
But
she didn't name Esther Dean.
No,
obviously.
but somebody else did. Somebody who knew.
Well, they said Esther Dean came out and was and did.
No. Somebody posted that Esther Dean wrote it.
Okay.
And then Esther Dean commented.
Yeah.
I did.
And did.
Yeah.
And it was a hit or something like that.
She came out and
when
confirmed.
Esther Dean tried to walk hers back and was like, it was an unfortunate situation.
Yeah,
the internet tried to eat her like
they did.
A bag of Funyuns. They was like, girl, bye.
I just feel like in life, we all have legitimate, I'm talking about legitimate, honest, understandable excuses for why certain things happen to us. But to me, an excuse is still an excuse. Even if it's legitimate, understandable, factual excuse, it's still an excuse. And I'm not into excuses.
I think just gotta kind of be I was scared is an excuse. I was young is an excuse. I didn't write it is the truth.
I don't want to hear none of that, man. Honestly,
it is the truth.
I don't want to hear
That's not an excuse. It's the truth. If you didn't write it.
You sang it though.
But she still sang it.
She didn't sing it.
You opened up
but
your
I'm just
mouth
saying
and
when
you
she
said the words.
Those words, I don't know that constituted or does that constitute as you just making excuses.
To me it is.
But here's the thing though.
And it's
here's the thing. And this is even for the independents. Like, we don't know what a person would do in that situation. We don't know what a person would do and what they're faced with.
Facts.
When their executive is like, "Oh no, you got to do this."
Facts.
Well, this is the life of an independent. You've got to be brave enough to carve your own pattern, to be your own person, to do your own thing, to be confident in what you're creating and where you want to stand. Because if you don't, there will be scenarios where people who think that they have leverage over you will utilize that to get you to do things that they want you to do that may not necessarily be what's best for you in the long term.
Which we will now look at and say this is probably a case of that she was pressured into doing this, but she still has her own accountability and ability to say, I still don't want to do that.
Listen, I'm not knocking her. I think most people would do it. I probably would, but my thing is just stand on it though. Like just stand on it and be a big girl, be a big boy, and just stand on what you did. I think most people probably would have done it. I'm not faulting her for doing it. Like most people, it's like you say, it's easy to say what you would do unless you're in a situation. So I'm not mad at that. But my thing is, 15, 20 years later, just Let it be,
She
man.
was like, I mean,
just accept your responsibility and keep it moving.
it's been a long duration.
A long time, bro. Like
Long
16,
time.
almost 20 years. That's
And-
why I was like,
'Cause you
why
got an
didn't she
album
just
to
be
sell.
like, hey, you know what? I was young. That was then. This is
This is
now.
now.
I really
That's
want to
behind
focus
me.
on my new music.
Exactly.
It's amazing. I worked with some amazing artists.
Here's the
just
thing, though.
keep it pushing.
I never heard the interview. She might have did that for 19 minutes of the interview or 90% of the interview. She might have did that, but they're going to take
that one
they're going to
segment.
take that one part
That's all it was.
and blow it up. So it's kind
Of
of like
course.
that's why you shouldn't even address it because
Yeah.
they're
Of
going to
course.
take that.
Now she dug in though, and I don't know if she diverted from it initially, but she dug in and took her time and told the version of the story that she felt like people needed to hear. It wasn't like she just kind of, flippantly threw out a response. Like
And to me, that's so dumb because why get the beehive against you? Like, don't even answer the question. Hope they forget about it. That was old. I ain't know that now.
I guess because
I
now,
love Beyonce. God bless you.
I guess
right.
now
Yeah.
because now the beehive can be reassured that her involvement in that was from more of a pressure perspective.
Yeah,
And
but then that's
that she
Brian's
wasn't
point. She's
willing,
being a victim now.
and that she wasn't willing to do
now
it.
that is
and
being
she was
a victim.
made to do it. And now that is
She
being
say,
a
say
victim.
I was young. I'm sorry. I don't feel that way now. I love Beyonce.
I don't feel that way. I love
Let's
Beyonce. I
keep
think she
moving.
does great
Yeah.
music. I love to work with her on the song. Boom. But
Boom.
that's in the past.
Yeah.
I'm doing things now.
Yeah, because to me, the victim part was, well, the executive was saying that, my music wasn't going to come out. And that sounds like now you being a victim to me.
I don't know.
That's exactly.
Yeah. And that's what she said. And so it's kind of like, maybe she was pleading to the beehive to be like, hey, guys, feel sorry for me.
Feel sorry for me. So now that you.
So now I'm on your side. So
Yeah.
please listen to
Go buy
my
my album
stream my music.
that comes out on April 18th.
Yeah.
which is today.
I think Carrie Hilson is dope, man.
I think she's a dope artist.
She didn't have to do artists. She didn't have to do this.
I think she's a dope. She should have just. But then again, that goes back to
the clicks.
the clicks. What we talked about in the beginning of hip hop media being unbalanced, right? I mean, she could have said, "That's way in the past. I don't really want to get into it. We know what's
She would have
happening."
got less clicks on her headlines, but
That's
she
why
would-
I'm like, did she do it on
she would have been
purpose?
fine though.
She would have been fine.
She would have been. Look, people still. It might not be millions of records sold, but she still got people who check for her.
Carrie so very. People
No
still love
way.
Carrie Hilson.
There's no way that Carrie would still. There's no way we would be having this conversation if she hadn't answered that question.
Yes.
So
Because
the
we
question
would-
becomes: did she do the right thing?
And,
I'm
well,
looking up her Spotify right now.
Did she do it on
Because-
purpose
Yeah, the
To help-
Spotify number is going to be.
to help promote the album?
It's not a good indicator.
She still got 4 million listeners a month.
Yeah, that's
bro.
not a good indicator.
No, how so?
So the majority of Carrie's music, actually almost all her music, is owned by major labels. So because they have an interest in the publishing, they're going to always ensure, and they also own a portion of Spotify. They're going to ensure that any artist that's been signed under their
Their
umbrellas, their music receives what will then pay them a revenue so they can continue to make a return on their investment. So there's a lot of artists that have gone indie that were signed before. They still pop on streaming platforms, but it's not because they're pushing it. It's because it was good music, point blank period. But also those majors are going to make sure that music continues to play so that there's ROI.
Especially if they have ownership of those
Of the
masters.
publishing, yeah,
The
the
publishing,
masters
yeah.
and the pub. They're gonna
That's
make
right.
sure. I don't care who you are.
I don't care who you are. We made music and music was good, and I own
Yeah.
the masters,
Yeah,
and I got publishing.
Yeah.
Oh, we gonna make sure you
yeah.
get.
Carrie could be at the
Oh,
house
yeah.
with her feet kicked up. She's still gonna have 4 million, or maybe she gonna have 3 million because the label's gonna make sure. Maybe the other million is something she's doing to
But-
stay relevant.
The point is, people will check for her if you put out something because somebody's still listening to her.
Somebody
There-
gonna check for Carrie.
There's a percentage of that. There's a percentage of that 4 million. Even
Yes.
if it's 10%, 400,000 people would listen in to her. So she's gonna be okay. And that's more than she got a leg up on the no name independent. She's getting started right now.
Yeah.
So she's blessed. You're blessed,
100%.
young lady. You had a blessed career, even though you might not think it's what you wanted it to be. You're blessed right now. Move forward.
Mm.
Yeah,
You're in
Yeah.
a good position.
Yeah, and
People will cut off their left arm to get 40,000 listeners a month.
a
yeah.
month.
You have 4 million. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
come on, man.
I just think it's important for indies just to navigate spaces like that with caution and awareness of what's actually happening, and watching out for people who kind of put you in situations that may not be beneficial for you.
It's hard,
right?
man.
It's hard. I get it. It's like
when
that
you're
peer
out there
pressure.
and you want to make it happen, and you get an opportunity, and you don't want to be the thing that you think stands in the way of you and that opportunity. It's tough to make those decisions.
But you are only responsible for your decision. You're not responsible for the consequence.
Well, that's what I say.
Happens.
They've got to be literally. You have to be thinking long term.
Long term.
Yeah.
It reminded me of Snoop Dogg when he was Snoop Doggy Dogg when he came out with Dr. Dre.
Mm-hmm.
He was dissing Eazy-E, Ice Cube. You know, and he loved them. He loved Eazy-E. Like,
Luke.
Now he in a group with Ice Cube now.
Mount
Westmore. So it's like
Westmore,
but he was doing what he had to do. So I don't fault Keri Hilson, whoever. I don't fault people for doing what they, got to do. It's just your thing. And my thing is, like I always say, be careful. Like to your point, be careful with the decisions you make, but also get leverage, because before you have leverage, you got to kind of pay to play. Once you get leverage, you turn the thing around. Now you got the leverage. Now you can make your decisions. Now you can be cool with Eazy-E and Ice Cube because you got the leverage now, so you can do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't fault people for like rolling with the team. If I'm coming in the door with you and you say, look, we got to do this, I'm not saying I would, but I don't blame folks for rolling with it.
Yeah.
But you got to get the leverage in your favor. You sign a bad record deal. I don't fault people who sign bad record deals. They get a name for themselves and they turn it around. So, I mean, do what you got to do, but just stop making excuses. Just
stand on accountability. I think that's the
even if it's the truth,
the thing.
Even if it's legit. Because like I said, listen, if you're a true victim, you're still a victim, though. You know what I'm saying? You can be a real life. They could have did you wrong, but my thing is, greater is He who is in me. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna be fine. I'm not gonna trip. So I'm not gonna make no excuses about it. That's just me.
No, I appreciate that.
Independence. Take it or leave it. It's my free game, my advice.
Yeah.
I think they'd be better off taking that advice for sure.
For sure, 100%.
Yeah,
100%. Okay, so we talked about the Carrie Hilson thing, and then the last thing we'll get into is about this, which I thought was very interesting. Scooter Braun is the I guess you could say he's the CEO of HYBE America, right? Inc. HYBE America is HYBE is the main company. HYBE America is what Scooter Braun,
the American branch,
a branch that he oversees, and we know Scooter Braun. They end up purchasing Quality Control, right? Which of course has Migos and who else is it? Migos, City Girls,
a lot of people.
I think Lil Baby's on.
Lil Yachty, Lil Baby, and Lil Yachty.
So now that's under HYBE America. And HYBE America just also inked a deal with Jermaine Dupri for a distribution of new music,
So Def.
Yeah, for So Def. And so now, and what's interesting was that when Scooter Braun came into the game, he was mentored by Jermaine Dupri. And then Scooter went on and did some amazing things. And now it's coming back full circle where now they're working together collaboratively on this distribution deal with So Def. I mean, do you think this is HYBE is a Korean-owned company, right? Brian and I have always talked about this whole K-pop thing and how K-pop uses a lot of hip-hop influences to make their music, sometimes paying homage, sometimes not.
And urban
cultural appropriation.
And urban cultural appropriation. And right. And that was one of the things that we had seen where there was a K-pop group that had to come out and apologize because they put on this hip hop birthday thing. And it was real, I guess you say, cultural appropriation type activities that they were doing. Big chains, 2 hats on, I'm just glad they didn't eat chicken and watermelon. Then that would have been a completely crazy thing, right?
I'm surprised they didn't.
I'm surprised they did the stigma of,
you thought you was going to say they had on blackface.
No, but they did have cornrows. They had cornrows and everything, right? And this whole live stream, people saw and they were like, what the heck? Y'all don't even talk like this on your every day-to-day basis. But anyway, HYBE, of course, is a Korean company who specializes in like pop music. But now they are coming into the urban space and making deals and buying up urban companies. I mean, is this a good move for So Def? quality control. Now that Lil Baby and then Yachty and
Let me ask
City
this.
Girls.
While homeboy thinking on this, let me just say this though. Pose these questions. What is out of the major labels, the major record companies? Who's the biggest?
we
Universal,
said
right?
this. We said this last. It was like
By far,
Universal.
Universal's a French company.
They are though.
You know what I'm saying?
Is it Vivendi?
Vivendi.
Yeah, Vivendi.
Sony's another. I think Sony
Japanese. Sony's a Japanese
Come
company.
on now, right?
Yeah.
I think Warner is American, but it's publicly traded, and then the fourth one is it's the big three, right? There's a big four. I keep
It's
Universal,
Sony,
Sony,
and
Warner.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So 2 out of the 3 are not even American anyway. So what are we talking about here? What are we talking about? What's American now? You know what I'm saying?
True.
Trump gonna charge tariffs on your downloads now because it's a French company.
Right.
He gonna charge tariffs on me.
I actually would have to. I would have to think. I guess money talks, right? But my initial reaction would be no. It's not necessarily a great deal for So Def, just because of the fact that, again, we talked about it on one of our previous pods where a lot of the smaller labels, boutique labels, a lot of the small distribution companies, they're being bought by Sony and they're being bought by Warner, right? And so now you sign a deal with someone who's not one of the major 3. The HYBE doesn't own any part of Spotify, which is the world's largest streaming platform. So if I was gonna sign a deal with somebody, would I sign a deal with somebody who's got probably the ability to influence as much of the music market as possible? Those 3 could block out HYBE at some point if HYBE gets too big, and we know they do that. That's why they're buying up the small distros and boutique labels. So I don't know. Will they feel a type of way, right? So Def was a Sony subsidiary. So does that is everybody good? What's the relationships beyond that?
I haven't researched it, but I will go out on a limb and say HYBE probably does business with the major labels. I will go out on a limb with that as far as distribution goes. Like it's almost like the big 3 touch everything pretty much.
They do.
And I know Quality Control, and I can do a little bit of research, but Quality Control have been distributed by 300, Motown, so they've been in the majors. So I find it hard to believe that they not still, like Lil Baby music still not being distributed by one of the big 3. I have a hard time believing that.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure like the big 3 is still involved some kind of way with HYBE music. But I can confirm that. But I'm just going out on a limb to say that.
Yeah, that's what I would want to know. That's what would tell me whether or not.
I mean, Quality Control, Lil Baby, Migos.
Right.
They're not just walking away.
These ain't little rappers.
They're not walking away from the major labels. It's like the mafia. They ain't.
But that's the thing, though.
Like,
and even that, I wondered if they were. Did they have to leave behind the masters for everything that they had done before the acquisition was made? Because if that's the case, then I don't care what you do. I don't care what QC does. I still got the masters. So knock yourself out. But maybe they cut a deal.
We need a researcher on the show, but I would venture to say that, like, for the amount of money that QC got to sell, I will venture to say that the masters probably left with them for because they got what, a couple $100 million.
I think so.
I'm getting the masters along with that, and I'm not faulting nobody for getting. Okay, hey, 200 million? Yeah, okay. So I'm not faulting nobody, but I don't know. I'm a nerd, so I would love to research this stuff.
Yeah, me too.
I would love to research, but I'm pretty sure that they still involved with the majors.
Yeah, that would be the only reason why I would see there being any issue. Other than that, it kind of would open their music up to maybe a market or markets that it doesn't conventionally see. Is Korea considered like a secondary or third level market, and now their music's gonna go directly there, just like it does here in the States? Does it give them more exposure, or was he just doing a deal with somebody who would cut him the best deal because he had done mentorship for them previously or something. That's to me. There's some more context that I would need.
Yeah, I'm just assuming that they do business with
I would assume that too, that they do business in some way with the big three from a distribution perspective, because HYBE has,
because you can touch all the distributors. I mean, if you got money, you don't have to go. You don't have to go through any of the three.
They got money because they got BTS.
No, listen. According to Bloomberg,
Yeah.
According to Bloomberg, Universal Music has exclusive rights to distribute HYBE music in the United States.
There we go.
In the United States.
So then it's so now we know how that is going to be transacted between HYBE and Universal. Is that now they got that?
Well, I mean,
relationship.
Does that technically mean that So Dev's deal is with Universal then? Because it's only a distribution deal. Technically.
Yeah, I'm reading off Universal Music's website. They had a big press release when they announced it March of last year. So about a year ago, they signed an exclusive deal to distribute HYBE's roster artists, which is mostly K-pop.
Yeah, so BTS and like BTS is one of their biggest, most successful.
Yeah. Like I said, these majors move like the mafia. They're gonna touch everything.
Of course, they're gonna touch everything.
They touching everything.
You ain't coming over here.
Yeah, it's big bank take little bank. Like if somebody's creating, which is
you're just gonna drop Ice Cube.
See, it just
tracks
be happening
right
to me.
That's the songwriters. That's what. Okay.
Yeah. So in the same fashion that it's absurd right now that Zuckerberg is having to go before a congressional hearing to talk about why he bought WhatsApp and IG, but nobody's asking Warner or Sony why they bought AWOL or why they bought a third of Spotify, or asking Spotify why they bought into DistroKid. You know what I'm saying? Like the music industry has been doing the same thing. If something looked like it got more motion than mine, I need to get it before it gets bigger or as big as me. That's what Zuckerberg did. He bought them because they were threats.
That's what Blockbuster didn't do with Netflix, right?
That's right. That's right.
That's exactly right.
They fumbled
big time. So
that's right.
Yeah,
But it goes back to how, and I guess the ultimate question is, I don't know, right? Because you would probably say, can a French company do that? But can a Korean company still keep Black culture intact and in its roots with making these types of purchases or acquisitions, right? Let me use the actual real corporate terminology, acquisitions and or mergers, and still keep the culture at the forefront. Even though they like to appropriate it.
If they put people in place and let them do their thing, like if they literally, like, if they try to run it themselves, absolutely not. But if they're smart, they're going to put, let's say, a Jermaine Dupri. Like, we got you over here. You know what, Jermaine Dupri, you're going to run hip hop.
The urban division.
Period. You're going to run hip hop. You're going to run R&B.
And do your thing. You know what you do.
We're going to leave you alone. We're going to let you run your thing.
Yeah.
So it's possible. Because we talk about Universal Music, but Def Jam has been a pillar. They've been a part of Universal the whole time. Def Jam and whoever else. That's just the one I'm thinking of right now. Going back when BMG was one of them. It was the Big Five back in the day. We had BMG.
And they bought them. No.
You had Arista. And
I know, right?
And Arista, Clive let LA and Babyface do their thing. He let Diddy, Puffy do his thing with Bad Boy. Just let them do their thing. You know what I'm saying? And they were very successful.
Yeah, remember there was a time when there was like more labels and more indie boutiques.
Technically, most of them labels were owned by the big four anyway.
Well,
because Arista was owned by Sony. Arista was owned by Columbia. Columbia was owned by Sony.
True. But the perception,
they were the ones giving out the deals, but they were doing a hands-off approach to where L.A. Reid could be L.A. Reid, to where Jimmy Iovine could be Jimmy Iovine, but they worked under somebody else's umbrella,
a subsidiary of. of that.
Yeah, even like on what was it? Clive Davis had J Records,
Mm-hmm.
but J Records was under RCA.
Mm-hmm.
RCA is under, so it's like
Yeah. Even
everybody had a boss. If you was in the music industry,
everybody had a boss.
yeah,
And it was and at the top of them bosses were the big dudes who ran everything else.
I think it's like the mafia, because I always wonder.
It was like the mafia.
I wonder why won't Drake and Taylor Swift just go independent and like and break records,
Right.
and be like, because Taylor Swift can go tomorrow and say, go to this website, buy this album, and she'll be fine.
That's right.
Why won't she do it?
What about Drake?
Drake could listen.
Drake could absolutely do it.
He could do it, but they won't, because I think the mafia. I think it's like a mafia kind of thing. I don't know.
I mean, but that kind of goes back to they're not making excuses, so we'll say that it's like why won't they leave though? Are they pressured to stay? Are they like, if you leave?
Yeah, it's the same reason why HYBE had to let Universal do the American distribution. If HYBE came over here and tried to do direct to the consumer distribution, and they had to still go through the channels that do distribution, those distribution companies knew that Universal was going to penalize them for doing business with HYBE. So they was like, look, Universal not letting us do that, bruh. And I'm making this up, but I ain't.
You've seen the mafia
movies.
You know
what I'm saying? So therefore it was like, look, if you want to do distribution in the States, you're going to have to go through one of these three. Now you can pick which one you want, but you're not about to get me shut down because I let you do distribution in the United States and I mess up my relationship with one of the big three.
Yeah. You're not going to come onto my block. Come over here and start selling stuff. That ain't happening.
So then it's like, you gotta, like you said, they're the mafia. You gotta pay the piper, baby. You're not just gonna come. The dude, Spotify is based in Denmark.
Somewhere over there, Sweden.
So how did there ain't no major label, the home office in Denmark, but the majors was like, wait a minute, you making money like that? Oh, if you think we about to just give you our publishing catalogs to put on, we'll have you shut down before we let you do that. Or what you can do
is create this partnership.
Is cut us a piece of that
pie.
That pie sure look good.
We gonna need a good slice. Of that pie too.
That white only pie
to justify.
That's right.
Why we should let you do this? But man,
you're 100% correct.
That's the thing. Is it good for the culture though? I guess we get this conversation, the culture, right? Is it good for hip hop?
Unfortunately,
R&B, is it good? It
was
for the
better
culture?
For it than we knew. It was bad, but it was good because them gatekeepers kept us from having 100,000 records released every week and having this crazy stuff we listen to on the radio sometimes because it was a little bit of gatekeeping. It might have been too much gatekeeping, but now it ain't none.
You know what? I got a question. Is this because we've talked a lot about culture appropriation from K-pop stars, right? Is this kind of like their the word is not apology. That's not the right word. Let's go buy all these Black-owned companies, music companies, and let's now go back and elevate them, so we can go back and pay homage. I'm just making this up, right? I'm just thinking about it now. Because now, with QC, with So Def, it's like now they're, or is it just part of their strategy? Of course.
I think it's about $1.
It's probably just about the dollar.
Let's differentiate though. It's different. QC, they bought QC.
They did. They purchased it.
They're doing business with So Def. So if that business don't work out, they can walk away from that. But they own QC. So it's a little bit different. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Jermaine's like, I'm not going to sell So Def. That's probably, they probably went to him with they let us purchase So Def. He was like, I don't know about that.
They probably ain't
I don't know. I'm just speculating.
Ain't nothing to sell.
Well, they got catalog. I mean, think
Sony
of all the
owns the catalog.
I was gonna ask a question.
Sony owns the catalog.
That's true.
Crisscross, the Brad,
the mob, the mob owns the catalog.
Jagged Edge, Escape.
All of them were signed.
Right.
If you were signed to So Def, you were signed to Columbia, you were signed to Sony. Sony owns all of that catalog. So if you're Jermaine Dupri, you own the name So Def.
So here's the question, though.
Now, I'm sure he owns his own Well, I hope. I'm sure he owns his publishing.
I'm sure.
And he's probably even got some masters. Because anything that he's released, like I know last year he released a record with a young lady and it did well. And I don't think that it was on any major.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't think so.
So I'm sure he owns those kind of masters.
I don't know. For the record, I don't know what he owns and doesn't own.
Me either. I have no idea.
Yeah, I kind of try to keep track of that the thing, but
that's the nerd in Tye. He's like,
well, you know,
who owns
the IP space is something that's near and dear to me. So
I know. No, just thinking. I mean, even now thinking about it, and I don't want to go too deep into it, but you know, I'm a very inquisitive person because now if it's owned by Sony and the HYBE America deal has a distribution deal through Universal, you know what? Y'all figure that out. Sony Universal.
No,
I'm sure.
So
you
now,
do.
So Def does a deal, the distro with HYBE
for new
artists.
But it says new
so
artists.
Now everything that he puts out, those masters now belong to Jermaine Dupri.
That's right.
Not the version of it that was through Sony. And so now this gives him an opportunity to have complete control.
That's right.
And ownership over an entire body of work that he releases under that umbrella with distribution that perfectly now is not tied to any of those majors, because maybe if he went and did a deal with Universal, Sony would have been pissed. Mm-hmm. And maybe Sony wasn't trying to give him the type of you're leverage that he wanted.
Because it is for new music that is being put out, not for music that is currently out.
Nothing existing
with those artists that fall under Sony.
This is his opportunity to
kind of build up that organization. So Def
and make some
with
pure,
new artists,
clean money that didn't have to pass through
anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
It's the same thing. Same reason why independent artists should be releasing their music. Because it gives them leverage. You release the music then in turn does well, you promote it, you market it, and then if you choose to take a partner, you now have leverage based on having that music released.
That's right. For sure.
Yeah.
Fact.
That's fact.
I'm pro release music. I'm a big fan of release it. Whatever content, music, podcast, whatever you got to offer the world, put it out there.
Put it out there. Release it.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the major struggles that artists have, especially from an independent perspective, is just releasing their content, releasing their music. You know, a lot of us work from perfectionism, right? It has to be right. But release that music. I mean, that's how you would develop that leverage in order to create those opportunities where you have more ownership and more control, more positioning over certain situations and circumstances. And you may not find yourself in a position where you have to actually do something. Somebody's making you do something. You can say, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I can be sure not to do that. Yeah. So no.
Yeah. But I'm going to take your word for that. I can't find any information on Jermaine Dupri Master. I'm going to take your word for it, though.
Yeah, I don't know, But yeah, it's just interesting, that dynamic is happening from that perspective.
Have you seen his recent the 3 hour
amazing interview?
Yeah, it was worth the 3 hours.
To me, that was the best Jermaine Dupri interview I've ever seen.
I had to check that out.
It was worth the 3 hours.
Yeah,
I love watching interviews. I'm gonna check that out.
That was his best interview
to
me.
Put it on time and a half though.
Great interview.
Yeah, you don't have to.
I gotta put it on time and a half.
It's very long.
You gotta do it while you're doing stuff.
It was good.
I made breakfast.
I was folding clothes.
I did laundry.
Yep.
I walked the neighborhood.
Oh, you're listening on headphones. That's right. Yeah.
It's good. It was good.
That's how I got to listen to interviews like that are long.
Yeah.
Is, coupled with some other type of activity.
Yeah.
In that perspective.
But even within the body of that, you get the context of, his first song that he put out, him and another kid, was they signed a deal. So he don't own the masters for that. Then him doing the deal with Sony. So he signed a deal.
He signed a deal.
Yeah. So he does a great job of laying out a timeline. It really actually reminds you that Jermaine Dupri is probably even a greater musical mind than you thought he was, because he still didn't have time to talk about like another 5 or 6 huge acts that he was a part of.
Yeah, don't get it twisted.
In 3 hours.
Don't get it twisted. JD is an absolute legend in this hip hop and R&B space. Absolute the caliber of people that he has worked with and has brought up in this industry.
Yeah.
Let's not get it.
Yeah, I don't.
That boy is ridiculous.
I don't want to incite Brian, but you can put him on the regular Mount Rushmore. He couldn't go on the hip hop Mount Rushmore because what he say in the interview, I got rap number ones, I got pop number ones, I got R&B number ones.
You know what?
We
can have this debate real quick because here's the thing though. As great as he is,
he's known for. I'll let you finish.
He's kind of in a rock and a hard place because if I had a Mount Rushmore of producers for hip hop, I wouldn't put him on either one.
He got to go. He's another to me.
But if
he would be another level up.
If you want to go hip hop like producer executive, he's on the Mount Rushmore. Producer with his own record label, he's up there. He's one of the four.
But as just a strictly hip hop producer,
that's what I was gonna say. I don't think he would like that.
No, but see, it's
Mariah Carey, huge records.
Well, personally, I can name four
Money Long.
I can name 4 R&B producers who I take over him, and I can name 4 hip hop producers that I take before him.
Yeah, but when you look at full body of work in terms of what they could do over set, that's why it's a different Mount Rushmore.
Do a Mount Rushmore if does both. He'll be up there.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, he would be up there. Yeah, he would definitely be up there.
In Michael Jackson's case, he does R&B. There's nobody to do R&B.
He's the king of pop.
There's no
He's
4
known as the
artists
king
that can
of
do
pop.
R&B better than Michael Jackson.
How do you put the king of pop on
There's
the
no
R&B Mount
4
Rushmore?
R&B artists. There's no 4 R&B artists that can do it better than Michael Jackson.
How do you put the king of pop on the R&B Mount Rushmore?
I think Michael Jackson has more pop and disco songs
You
than
got
R&B.
me in this thing. I said it twice that I was going to argue with you about this. And you got me back again. I'm done.
This is a question. It's just a question.
I said I wasn't
He's a he, hoo. How does he end up on the R&B?
Look, as we start to close out, ladies and gentlemen, I think Michael has more disco and pop songs than he does R&B songs.
Yeah.
Both of y'all said "Rock with You" and R&B, so I'm done
It's
with y'all.
not.
I'm done with y'all.
Yeah, that's a pop song. That is an absolute 100% pop. Like that's a pop song right there.
Marvin Gaye is rolling over in his grave.
I mean, even look at the aesthetics of that video.
Yes,
that is all disco pop aesthetic. The whole and the lights and everything. Oh yeah, that's great disco there.
So no disco is R&B?
I think disco is disco.
I think disco is disco. I think you can take elements of disco and put it in R&B.
Okay,
there's elements of R&B in every genre.
I exit this
B is
discussion.
exiting again.
But I will say this in closing. I will say that Tye is the best rapper alive.
No, sir. Come on now. Here we go again.
Tye is the best rapper alive.
Tye is my number one as far as rapper spirit down south. The best down south rapper.
The best down south rapper.
He's the best rapper alive.
He said okay, look, ladies and gentlemen, we're not getting Tye on this.
T.I.'s the best rapper alive. When it comes to like making songs, Drake is the best. But when we talking about just bar for bar over an entire body of work, the entire span of a career, there is no one more fire than T.I. It's really not even close.
It's the same guy that said "Rock with You" wasn't R&B. So.
I mean, that's not an R&B song.
I'm sitting next to the guy who said the same thing.
I'm not arguing with you about this kind of stuff. But I'll give you a little bit of credit though. I can see how you can make that argument about T.I. because T.I. is amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing.
I knew you were a genius.
I can see where the argument's coming from.
Brian, I knew you were a genius.
From a Southern rap perspective?
We can get past the Michael Jackson thing.
From a general rap perspective.
You can't find
from a general rap perspective. I can understand. T.I. is
I'm not saying he's nice.
No, he's
I'm not saying that he's not.
I'm not saying he's the best rapper alive. I'm
not saying he's the best rapper alive.
You can make an argument. You can
on
make
this
an argument.
part right here, insert T.I.'s verse for Swagger Like Us remix. Insert his verse.
I can insert a whole bunch of verses
for kids out there to get their
T.I. You can make an argument that he is up there.
He better than Joe Budden?
What just happened? What just happened?
Well, here's the thing.
Look, we're having technical difficulties.
Here's the thing about Joe Budden though. Joe Budden to me loses a lot of credibility because he quit.
And that's the reason for it.
And I'm holding that against him.
For Joe Budden.
I'm holding that against him because he did a verse in 10 years now?
But when
something
Joe,
like that.
when he's doing his thing, though.
But he was doing his thing, though. He was, but if I say Joe at his prime and T.I. at his prime,
It's
I'm
not
gonna give T.I. the
close.
edge over Joe.
It's not close because Joe
Well,
Budden don't.
No,
He doesn't have hooks. He's
I'm
an
talking about
amazing rapper.
rapping.
We talking about rapping.
He's an amazing rapper.
No, we're talking about rapping right now.
We talking about rapping. We talking about
T.I.
hooks.
gives you an amazing rap,
Not in every,
and an amazing
not
hook.
in every song.
We're talking about rapping.
Which
though.
one? Name.
No, we're talking about rapping. I don't care about no. I don't care about no hooks.
He
man.
lives next to T.I.
I don't care about no hooks.
What
Brian,
T.I. song?
Ty lived
what
next to
T.I.
T.I.
song did he miss?
I don't care about no hooks though. I'm talking about rap.
And that's
verses.
okay because we're
Rap
talking about
verses.
T.I.
I'm talking
so
about verses.
you don't even need the hook.
No,
Anyway,
I'm
ladies and
telling you,
gentlemen.
I'm putting him ahead of Joe Budden, but it's
Yeah.
but it's not. It's closer than you think though.
Okay.
Put some respect on Joe Budden. Name
Joe nice.
as a lyricist.
Joe nice.
So-
it ain't like T.I. is a huge gap between them two.
No,
Right. The gap is closer than you think it is.
No.
Joe
Oh,
is
yeah.
nice. Joe is
Joe
nice.
nice. Joe can't make a Joe can't make a handful of songs.
I'm talking about bars.
He can
though.
go bars.
I ain't talking about the.
Ty
nice,
lives
though.
next door to T.I. In case y'all didn't know.
About the rappers.
I've actually never met him, and I have met a lot of people. But I'm sure we'll meet one day
This would be a
soon.
I ran into
conversation.
T.I. at Jay Prince's book thing at Tree Sound Studios,
Mhm.
and I was surprised that he about as tall as me. He wasn't tall. I didn't think he was.
I saw T.I. at the what did we go to? Some award show up in Marietta.
Literally, the closest we are is how T.I. was right, and I was like, "Oh, okay, he's not that."
Yeah, I saw he was
yeah.
walking right next to me. I was like, oh.
Well, T.I. say he's
Anyway.
he 5'9" with the soul of a 6'4" nigga, but
I'm 5'8",
I don't think
so
he's
taller than
5'9".
me. I'm 5'8".
I don't think he's 5'9".
because
He look about the same height as me.
Yeah.
And I'm barely 5'8".
That's what he
yeah,
said.
nah,
I'm 5'9" with a soul of a 6'4".
no sir.
But I don't think
He
he's
not
5'9".
I don't think he's 5'9" either. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this was dope. I love this. I
God bless.
just love these types of conversations.
It's fantastic.
Appreciate y'all. Thanks for tuning in once again. B, it's always good. It's always good to see B, man. It's like
God bless,
that's
man.
my guy
Appreciate it,
right
man.
there. My man Tye Huntley.
Yes, sir.
Man, I appreciate you, bro.
100%.
We got some big things coming.
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, appreciate it once again. Thanks for tuning in once again to the Indie Unplugged. Peace out. Peace.
No, man, I could debate all day.